Hey everyone, today I just want to show you a quick rundown of my home network. And in reviewing some of the videos I shot for this little segment, I realized how dirty and how embarrassing my wiring is. So if you're not a fan of dirt and ugly looking wiring, then turn away now. Otherwise, stay tuned. We'll show you a little bit of what I got in the house here. So before we start with the walk around videos, let's take a quick look at the topology that I have set up. Most of my stuff is Unifi, the Ubiquity Unifi network equipment. And so I can basically show you on their topology map how it looks. So I have a USG, which is my edge router connected to my fiber that comes in from my ISP. I go to a switch on the wall in my closet, and I go to a switch on a box in my closet. Now, I mentioned in the video, you'll see in a minute, that I talk about the reason I did that is not enough ports. But one of the other reasons I did that is because in that closet, all the cables come into a box on the wall, and none of them are long enough to reach outside of that box. So I have this little switch in here that feeds that box, feeds that switch from those cables in the house, and then from there I go to the other switch, which then feeds out to some other parts of the network. I also have a little mini flex switch here. And I also have a switch up in the attic, which I'll show you. And then in my office / guest bedroom, thanks COVID, this is also going to be another mini flex switch. So that's basically the topology. I have an AP here, which ties into this switch. And then in the garage, which comes from here, you'll also see that I have a garage switch that also links to another AP in the garage. Now you'll see that I go from the garage to the garage switch to the bedroom, then to the box, then to this. The reason it comes up here is because I have a power line adapter that feeds from this switch to this switch. I have a zero networking in the garage, and I tried to run a cable to the garage, and without tearing the whole house up, which would not be a thing my wife would enjoy, I went ahead with the power line adapter. My initial setup when I had that in there originally didn't work very well, and so I was doing basically a backhaul from this AP to this AP. That worked okay, but running cameras 24/7 across a backhaul length on the actual access point network wasn't my ideal solution. So I tried the power over Ethernet adapters, or Ethernet over power line adapters. And that seems to have been pretty stable so far. So it's working really well. I'm running 3 cameras on that 24/7, each running about 4 megapixels. So it does a good job. So let's jump into the video. Let's start in the closet here where everything comes into the house. So you can see here is the one of my Unifi switches. But really, we started out here with the fiber connection that comes into the house. And then it comes down to little AT&T modem, which I'm just using for connection. There's my UPS that I've got set up there. And then down on the bottom here is my Synology DS918 Plus. It's got my Plex server and my mail server and other things on it. That's a little ham radio thing I have going, a little nano spot that does DMR right now, digital mobile radio. And then of course all my different power things. Obviously this needs to be cleaned up, and maybe I'll make another video on how I clean that up. Also, you can see in here that, so I can do this all in one hand. This is my HD home run that comes in. There's an antenna connection here from the attic. And I get all my over-the-air broadcast TV this way, and then of course all my cable runs that go around the house. The reason this is sitting in here is because I don't have enough switch ports, and at the time I didn't have enough switches to actually, or enough room to actually put in a bigger switch, so that's what I'm using that for. And then you come over here, that's no longer used. That was my old cable modem. Now I'm on fiber, and then what we have here is we have my Unifi USG router, and edge connection. And then another one of the switches here, the switch 8. And actually on this switch right here in the closet, this powers one of the other switches I'll show you later on through a PoE pass-through. And if we come up here, you'll see that I have my weather station console here. That's connected to wirelessly to a connection outside. I feed that to my Home Assistant setup. And then up top here, couple things. One, you'll see up there is my Unifi AP Pro. And then I have down here, I have my PBX, free PBX server, and I have a video I just made on that, on how I got that configured. And I think that does it for here. Of course, there's an alarm system here, and this alarm system is actually tied into my Home Assistant using a little internet or IP-based board. Coming from the switch in the closet there, you can see a network connection drop that actually runs across the floor here. And back behind this, this cabinet back here, and comes over here into this little computer desk where not only am I running a server in here for my cameras and just desktop PC, but also it's a mess where I store a bunch of extra equipment. Hiding back there is my Cisco ATA, which is plugged into the telephone in the house. And then I have one of these little these mini flex switches from USG. Let me see if I can get this to where you can see it. I'll show you, I've got a better one of these here, I'll show you later on, but that's one of those mini flexes. It's actually powered off the PC. And then if we come around the back, you'll see here the, this is where my Home Assistant server is. That's, I think the center is my Home Assistant server. And then I have my US UPS that powers that. It's a CyberPower Focus, a CyberPower 1500 VA, and then on top of that is my Flume water sensor, which is wirelessly connected to a sensor outside of my water meter. And now in the garage, you can see back here, that little white box is actually my power over, or Ethernet over power line adapter, which is working surprisingly well since it's sitting in on a GFCI outlet, but that's the main GFCI outlet, so that goes back into the box. Those typically don't work on GFCI outlet. Can't even say it. Those typically don't work on a GFCI fault interrupt outlet anyway because of the electronics in those outlets, but because it's on the main one that feeds directly into the panel, that seems to work okay. And going up, that follows all along this here. It comes over here past my camera, and that's connected over here to another switch, PoE switch. And that PoE switch is one of my Unifi switch 8s. And that one actually is powering 3 cameras and an access point. And of course, there's a little UPS that sits on it, powers it up. And there's my access point that feeds the garage. And if I'm outside in the front yard, kind of feeds that front yard. All that runs over that power line adapter. It runs those cameras 24/7, and it doesn't seem to have any issues powering it. I'll show you where the other end of that thing is. This is kind of my home office area that I'm using for, there's my video conferencing light. I'm using this temporarily for right now, a little standing desk that sits up on it. But where that other end of the power line adapter is actually right here. You can see that thing right there. And it just plugged into, ordered some shorter cables, which actually will be here today. In fact, I think they just showed up. That'll take that wad of Ethernet and make it short, a couple of 1-foot cables that'll go from that power line adapter to that switch, and from that switch back into the wall, so I don't have all that extra bundle of cables. And then my PC even though it has wireless in it, plugged directly in because I get a better experience when it's plugged in. Let me see if I can show you this this switch real quick, without blinding myself. All right, so this is that little USG Unifi USG Mini Flex switch, and it's only got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 ports, but it can also be powered via PoE pass-through. And so that plug that comes from the basement or from the closet actually powers that switch all the way up here in the upstairs office area. And that's how I power that switch. Those things will do, they don't do SNMP, but they do VLAN. So if you have a VLAN setup, you can do that VLAN setup through that as well. Let's go check out what's in the attic. I'm probably gonna get a lot of flack for this because of the way I have this set up. I mean, it's only 110 degrees in the attic right now. So, one other thing I have, and just ignore the mess. Really ignore the mess. I mean, try your hardest to ignore the mess. A lot of cleanup work is required. But you can see up here, I also have another Unifi switch 8. This is a PoE switch. And plugged into this switch, I have a number of things that run in the attic. And the reason I have this stuff in the attic is I have some antennas for ham radio and for ADSB, which is the automated something surveillance broadcast that aircraft send out, and I feed into a number of different ADSB services, flight mapping services. And so I have this up here in the attic. You can see there that that is my ADSB receiver on a Raspberry Pi. And then I have a PC over here that is running 1, 2, 3 SDRs. 2 of them are in a Unitrunker, which listens to the local public safety network on our EDAC system. And then the third one is a SDR console that I use to listen to just random stuff that I want to listen to. I can tune it remotely from software. I've got 3 antennas up there that are just sitting up here. And again, you can see the radiant heat barrier up here. It blocks most of the signal, so having it up here, it seems to work okay. And then everything over here goes out that cover onto the roof, where I have an antenna on the roof that covers everything else. And of course I have a little UPS, which, by the way, those of you that know better know that you shouldn't have battery powered, or batteries in this type of environment, they don't last, which is the case on this UPS. And then I have this right here is another Raspberry Pi that feeds into this radio here, which does my APRS, automatic packet reporting system, that I use for ham radio. And I transmit out as an iGate and also receive data and feed it back into services like APRS.FI and APRS Direct. But this switch has been up here for a while. I don't even know, maybe a year. Right now it's 100 and I have a sensor, I think it's 115 degrees in the attic. But these things seem to be okay because there's a lot of ventilation up here, as well as the radiant heat barrier you can see here that keeps most of the heat out. If I didn't have this radiant heat barrier, I would be no way I would have this stuff in the attic. Thanks for making it all the way to the end of this video. It wasn't really much education other than just kind of showing you what I have in the house. Remember, things like this don't just happen all at once. I've built it over time. I added the cameras, I added extra switches, I swapped out switches that were the cheap ones with the Ubiquity switches, so I'd have a unified infrastructure. If you liked the video, please let me know below. Make sure you subscribe, tell your friends, hit that bell icon so you'll be notified when I make other videos. And have a great day. We'll see you on the next one.